Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Let's Talk Tendies podcast. Today, big day. We got our first guest on the podcast, and this guy is awesome. Really great guy. I'm recording this after we did the podcast, so we had a great hour and like 15-minute interview. He's an amazing guy. We are interviewing JonerF1 today. Or at least in this episode, we're interviewing JonerF1. First off, I want to say I'm recording this on December 24th. I even think I said it in the podcast and in the interview. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's to everyone who's listening, everyone who's watching. I believe this will be putting up in between Christmas and New Year's. I appreciate everyone's support on the first episode. It was awesome. It was amazing. I had so much fun. I love talking. That's it. I love talking. No, I love talking about different subjects. I love talking about different people. I love talking with people. It's people, especially people I like. Love that. This episode, we got JonerF1. He is a 3-time going on 4-time F1 champion, esports champion. I probably should have clarified that. He was a streamer at some point. He is a lover of racing, lover of driving, lover of guitars. He also is a podcast host. He actually gave us a shout out in the last. He gave us a shout out in the last one. The last one was the bad, the good, the bad, and the great teachers. He gave us a shout out on that. For that episode, and then we gave him a shout out back for him. So I asked him if he wanted to be on it, and we can just talk around or yap, as his podcast is called, the Yappy podcast. And he said absolutely, and we've recorded it. And honestly, it was an amazing conversation. I had so much fun. He seemed to have so much fun. So if you want to find Jonah on anything, JonerF1 on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch. He doesn't stream on there anymore. As well as his podcast, the Yappy Hour podcast. Yappy not W. Oh my God. YAPPY. Hour is hour. HOUR. Don't forget the. And honestly, great time, great conversation. And let's just. I gotta show you this. It was a great conversation. I will see you. In the podcast. All right. Yeah. Enjoy the conversation. Follow or subscribe if you want to see some more people. We got more people lined up. Do not worry. And enjoy it. Enjoy. Sweet. Sick. Bet. What's up? Welcome. Intro out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined today, the second episode of I almost said a Yappy Hour. Bro, I am ready to host your podcast. Second episode of the Let's Talk Tendies podcast with the one, the only JonerF1. Round of applause for this man coming through, saying yes to the podcast. He'll be actually our first guest.
I'm honored.
First guest. Honestly. We got I got a couple of my buddies coming in. I got Momo. He's gonna. Oh yeah. I got him. I'm currently recording this on the 24th of December. So Merry Christmas to anyone. Happy holidays. I don't know when this is coming out. We got Momo a Boxing Day, and then my friends whenever. So I got content for the next couple weeks, which is a W. Yeah, man. A W. Jonah, how you been? Get this out of the way.
Good. I've been good. Doing a lot of things, doing a lot of nothing at the same time. Just all over the place. Living life, man. Living life.
Love that. I think honestly, we should get this out of the way. Podcast host, talking about the Yappy Hour podcast. You gave us a shout out in one of your latest episodes. I gave you a shout out in the first episode. Where did it come from? Where in the big mind of Joner did that come from?
Well, the Yappy Hour, you know what? I can't take sole credit for it. The Yappy Hour was a two-person operation at the beginning. But the idea originally came from the Yappy Hour is my second podcast that I've hosted. This isn't my first go around. I did a podcast strictly based on Formula One. If you even want to call it strictly based on Formula One, because we have 5 minutes of Formula One and 45 minutes of talking about other stuff. called the Soft Tire Podcast, which my friends and I ran for almost 2 years, which was a lot of fun. And, it went way farther than we ever thought it would. We ended up being connected on LinkedIn with some Formula One personalities, with some drivers. It was really cool and interesting. And the problem is we ended up ending it because my two friends ended up moving to Vancouver. And that was a little bit far from here. And we did it on Discord for a little bit, which was fine, but the time difference kind of got in the way and all that stuff. So we ended up calling it quits the summer of last year. And I was sitting talking we were sitting by the fire, having some beers, my buddies and I, and we were like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we did a podcast? These are different friends this time, right, not the same ones from the tire. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we did a podcast? And my best friend Anthony's like, yeah, man. I mean, we talk shit all the time. Like, why not, right? It'd be a ton of fun to kind of do it behind a microphone now and try not to get arrested. And
make sure the PlayStation audio doesn't leak.
We brainstormed. Dude, oh my god. Make sure the party chats aren't out. We brainstormed it and we thought of an idea, and it was just, we didn't want to do a podcast that was strictly based on one topic because it felt kind of limited with the Soft Tire and having the ability to kind of talk about anything we wanted to. And I remember I was just sitting at my computer brainstorming a name for it, and we use the word yap all the time, and I was like, man, we'd get pretty yappy, and then it just popped up and it's like, oh my god, Yappy Hour with and the idea kind of blossomed of, we have every podcast, we have a different drink and we sit there and we talk and call it the Yappy Hour, and the Yappy Hour was born.
See, now I've listened to, I haven't listened to all of them yet. I'm kind of I have a rotate through 5 or 6 podcasts. So it's in the rotation for sure. I think I'm kind of falling in with your grandparents on this. You're turning into, what's his name? Dave Portnoy with the restaurant reviews.
The pizza segment.
The pizza segment. That was
awesome. The restaurant review is great, man. We love doing it. And it's funny. The original idea for that came up because before we ever did a podcast, the way for my boys and I, during school and during work to kind of stay connected was we'd go to dinner every Friday. Just because, while you're in school, if you have an assignment due the next week, you can push it back to the weekend or something like that. Enjoy your Friday night. Yeah. And when you're working, you're done the week on Friday. So it was just kind of our day to, go to dinner, hang out, do whatever. And then we just decided, well, wouldn't it be cool if for the podcast we did the same thing, but just reviewed where we went to dinner, as if we're professional restaurant critics, even though we're just 4 idiots behind microphones. Wouldn't it be cool if we gave our reviews of it? And it was also a way to prevent us from kind of going to the same place over and over and over again, because we had to give different reviews. So we ended up doing that, and my grandparents loved it. And we turned it into a full-on segment that we're going to start as of episode 7, which will be next, not this upcoming one, but the one after that. I'm going to make some intro music, and we're actually going to write down the scores and start creating a chart for the best restaurants that we've been to and reviewed. So it's turned into something more than I thought it would be.
Throw it in Excel, put it on Reddit, go from there. Here's the link to our Excel if you want to see the scores.
It's just 3 21-year-olds going to eat, getting an appetizer and a beer and having dinner.
That's all you need. Get a single beer, walk out. It was mid.
It's one of those, so
yeah, sure. You gotta come down to my neck of the woods. You gotta come down and we gotta go to a restaurant, figure that out.
Dude, I'm down. You gotta figure out how to drive on a highway. So you can
I need to figure out how to drive on a highway. I need some practice on it. For those who don't know, I do have my G2. I just don't drive highways. My parents are you need experience, which makes sense. You can't really go on a highway with no experience.
100%.
But we kind of just forget.
It's busy, man. It's tough to kind of get that practice in there, but once you do it, you got to come down here. I mean, we do the Yappy Hour in person. We try to, because we have a whole studio for it. So
absolutely,
the full mics and everything. It sounds better. It's a different environment. I mean, we did not the Yappy Hour. We did the Soft Tire online for a long time. Mainly because it was a partial pandemic adventure, and then they moved to Vancouver. And it's just not the same as doing it in person. When you're in the same room, you can bounce off each other's energy, body language, that kind of stuff. So we try and do it in person. I mean, there's some guests that we're going to have on that are across the Atlantic, so we can't exactly do those in person. But the ones that are close enough, we're going to try and get in person, including yourself.
Yeah, I would love to. I really need to get on the high. I think come the new year, I think is when I have maybe a little more time. I got Fridays. I don't have Fridays off. I was going to say I had Fridays off, then I realized getting double booked for work on that. Yeah, tough. F1, going back to the Soft Tire podcast, you have a immense, and it's an obvious immense love for vehicular items and cars and even racing in general. I just want to know, where did the love for F1 begin?
Oh man, that's a really good question, actually. The love for F1 began in, I mean, it started in 2017, when I just really had nothing else to watch. During the summer, there's no Leafs hockey, and the Jays in 2017 and 18 were like a really bad team to watch.
Definitely on the decline.
It was, that was not prime Blue Jay. And keep in mind, we had just come off of like the Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Bautista, like 2015-16 teams with Josh Donaldson and his MVP. So there wasn't a lot of good like sports to watch. The Leafs were a good team, but only play in the winter. And Jays were a really poor franchise to watch that summer. So I ended up watching on TSN. There was these races, and I'd always loved cars since like I was a little kid, and I'd, tinkered with my own and built my own and done all that kind of stuff. And, I found this racing series, and I watched it. I was pretty fair weather, I'll be honest. Like I wasn't like a super big fan. I picked my team and that kind of stuff, but I didn't watch it big time. And my uncle, my mom's brother, who's also a huge car guy, we're like the same person, except he's in his 40s and I'm not. That he came to me one day and he goes, "Dude, do you want to go to the Canadian Grand Prix, like in person?" And I was like, "Are you kidding? Of course I want to go to the Canadian Grand Prix." So we organized we put everything together, and we were like, we got our tickets, and we ended up going to the 2019 Canadian Grand Prix, which was a phenomenal race to be at. The atmosphere was electric. It was the first season of Drive to Survive had just come out. So It was like really fresh, and a lot of people were starting to get into the sport. I had been into it for a few years, but this is my first time being at the event. And I'll tell you, Formula One on TV is a spectacle, because it's super interesting to me how they make the cameras work and the audio and that kind of stuff. But there's nothing like seeing these cars in person. There's nothing like it. They are just marvels of engineering. They're race cars, right? I love race cars. So seeing these things in person and, hearing them and hearing the atmosphere and seeing the drivers on the drivers parade, seeing guys like, Lewis Hamilton, who at this point had only won 5 world championships, or no, he had 2008, 2014, 15, 17, and 18. Yeah, 5 world titles.
Even
at this point.
5,
which is still
insane. Like, you can't.
It's still absurd. He's still on par with guys like Fangio and Schumacher at that. I mean, Schumacher has 7, but
yeah.
So, seeing guys like Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen like waving in the driver's parade was like, yo, these are real people. Because you only ever see them on TV, right?
Right.
And we went to that race. It was a great race. If anybody listening watches Formula One, it was the race where Sebastian Vettel got that really stupid 5-second time penalty, and at the end of the Grand Prix, when the cars are all parked in Parc Ferme, he like walked over and moved the sign in front of his car.
Such an
iconic
moment. You were there?
I was standing.
Oh wow!
I watched him move it. I watched him walk out, pick the sign up, and move the sign. And me and my uncle are like, "Oh my god!"
That is an all-time memory.
It was great, and once you're there and in person, I just fell in love with it, and it was a snowball effect, and I died for the sport, and that was it. And now it's my favorite sport to watch, and it takes up every one of my weekends when it's on. And I did, I participated in the sim racing and esports side of it, and it was I just dove headfirst after that 2019 Canadian Grand Prix. And anyone who doesn't, you really should. It's one hell of a sport.
Yeah, I used to love, and I was so into. I used to love NASCAR. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what it was. I think it was from Cars, actually, like the Pixar movie.
Oh yeah, dude!
Loved Cars, loved it so much. And then eventually, I think it formed into NASCAR, and it was growing up. It was always Dale Earnhardt Jr. I don't know why. No reason
Always
why.
Dale.
Just Dale Jr. Loved them.
Yep.
I had like the die cast of like the bigger ones and
Oh, you had the model. Oh yeah.
all the models, and I would stupidly crash them into all the Hendrick cars, crash them into each other. I always loved the crashes too. I think that's one of the things with F1 we don't see much is the crashes, which makes sense. It's a little bit more dangerous.
They're not as like significant. Well, I mean, the thing in NASCAR is you'll have like you watch it. They call it the big one. Right?
Yeah.
There's a ton of cars involved, and in Formula One, there's only 20 cars on the grid. So the big one could be like 5 at most. You'll never really see more than 5 cars in an accident unless it's like really bad.
Right.
But the thing is the accidents, they're so much faster that it's like way more dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, is this guy going to get out of this car? Like, is he alive? Kind of thing.
Right.
But luckily, they've improved the safety, so 99.9% of the time they are alive.
They are. I think then, of course, growing up, understanding racing, following it more, I actually got into F1 through Drive to Survive. I think I was bored on Netflix. I'm like, I'll check it out, and I started watching it. And I actually watched, I don't remember what season, one of the maybe 2020, something like that.
Pandemic year.
2021, I think it might have been.
Great season.
Yeah, it was a great season. Oh, no, was that the one with the till the final? It was the equal point? Yeah. I watched that race on that morning. I think it was a Sunday, right? Yeah, so I watched it. I woke up and I'm like, okay, and I flipped on the TV and it was on TSN. And I remember watching the race and I'm like so invested in it. And my dad's like, what's happening? And I go, these 2 guys, equal points, they literally, and then they let the 5, it was just the 5 cars.
Wins it all, right?
Yeah. They just said, they're not going to, the 5 cars in the way aren't going to win. Let them race it out. And it was just insane watching it.
It was, I had like 6 of my friends over that morning and we watched it in person when it happened, and like you had one guy, Mom was a Mercedes fan, right? So he was rooting for Lewis, and you had other guys who were like Red Bull fans, and then me who was a McLaren. Like we're all sitting there, mesmerized by what's happening, completely flabbergasted that any of this is going on. Watching it in person, it was one of the best days of my life watching that race with those guys. It was one hell of an experience.
Yeah. Actually, one of the hardest things for me in F1 is actually choosing a team and a driver, because it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like if I choose one, then it's like, oh, now people are going to hate me because I choose the wrong one. So my joke is I just choose Haas. Like that's the joke. Yeah. That's the joke. It's like nobody can hate them. They're the like one of the worst. Nobody can hate them.
Nobody will hate you for driving a Haas. Nobody will hate you for driving a Haas.
But I don't think there's a team that I like truly despise or truly love. It's really hard. It's not like it's NASCAR where you have your top drivers and you can it's F1. Yeah. People come in and out so quickly, and it's the oh my God, the maker of I can't think of the maker of the car, the constructor, yes. And the driver. It's not like it's Team Hendrick and you have 4 cars to choose from, or Stuart Haas and you have 3.
Team and you have 2 cars.
Yeah. Pick one. I like Danny Rick though. Can we just all agree on that? We both love Danny Rick.
I'm connected to Danny Rick on LinkedIn. I love that.
Actually, I might
that was through the software.
Sauce him.
Him. Who else? Cyril Abitable, the old team principal for Renault.
Okay.
And Warner.
That's cool. No, that's really cool.
Absurd. Wild.
That is insane.
Greatest day of my life.
I feel like that would be. Well, they're listening to it too if they like look you up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, dude, Daniel Ricciardo. We were this close to getting Oscar Piastri as a guest.
Wow.
On the podcast, we were really close, and we were talking with his management back and forth midway through the Formula 2 season. And then he ended up winning the championship, and then we just never heard back. And I was like, "Oh, dude, he got good. He got good before we could get him on.
Got good." I think you should bring that back one day, low key. Have a couple episodes every now and then, kind of catch up. That would be.
We'd like to. It's tough, but
I think you should fly to Vancouver, grab your friends, throw them on a plane, bring them back. Just.
Why do they do that? Just fly here.
Yeah, just grab them by the collar and grab them by the belt and throw them right into cargo.
Yeah, right into the cargo.
Yeah, put them in a cage. There you go. Check luggage. You are also, for F1, keeping on brand of racing, your favorite, or not even racing, just cars in general, your favorite car model make at least is a BMW.
It's up there. It's up there.
Why are you a horrible person?
You know what? There's several reasons I can answer this question. I'll stick with the car one.
Stick with the car. In matters of the car, stick with the car.
Yeah, it's funny. The BMW's never really crossed my radar as like a car that was attainable and something I could own. I always looked at like, like the things everybody looks at, the M3s, the M4s, the M5s, like the really nice ones that everybody wants.
Yeah, the stupid.
And I always looked at those and never really thought that I never really looked at a BMW and thought that, their sedans are still really fast and attainable until I ended up selling my old car and I ended up selling my Lancer. Shout out Peyton. Love that car. And I was looking for something new and I found that, BMWs happen to be one of the kinds of cars that depreciate really quickly when they're new, right? So in the first 5 or 6 years of their lifespan, they depreciate like a crap load. So they become attainable for someone my age and for someone, who has money to spend on something like that. And so I ended up looking at it and I drove it, and man, I tell this to everybody because everybody always asks the same question. It's like, why would you get a BMW? Like, like people are like, oh, they're so unreliable, and BMW drivers are.
I was gonna say, like BMW drivers. I've had experiences with BMW drivers.
Dude, they're the worst. Don't get me wrong, and I own one. But it was I'm not gonna say it was platonic, but I drove the car and I just absolutely fell in love with it. There was when I got out of it, I knew the minute I closed that door that I had to own that car, that there was no way I could pass that up, and there was no way that I could get that same feeling from something else. So other than like an M3, which I can't afford, but I drove it and I just completely fell in love with it. Everything about it, it's the passion behind it, the history behind the motorsports, the history behind the brand, and the history behind, their passion for making performance vehicles and for enthusiasts. And I just fell in love with the thing. And I knew that if I didn't buy it, I'd never forgive myself. So I bought it.
Sure.
I was like, I couldn't pass up on it. It was number one, it was way too good of a deal. Too good of a deal to pass up on. The car was a total unicorn. It was a complete unicorn. I looked for 8 months for like this spec that I have now. It took me forever to find this spec. I found it. It was a unicorn. It was a great price, super low kilometers. The thing was in phenomenal shape, and I was like, there's no way I can pass this up. I can't do it.
That's not a steal. That's a robbery at that point. Like,
dude,
wow.
I felt like a thief.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Actually, I think the only photo I have, this is gonna sound creepy. The only photo I have of you, no, the only photo, because I was streaming one time and we played MLB co-op. I hope you remember that. That was awesome. We threw a perfect game. Yeah. That was the whole thing, is we threw a perfect game in MLB. So I had to find a photo of you on Google, and one of the first came up was you in your BMW. So I'm like, sure. Grabbed it. I think I still even have it in one of my like folders for people that I can use. I might even use it for the thumbnail of this, to be honest.
Dude, like, I love it. I love it.
Like, just be on, like, I'll probably end up using it, but it was like, okay. And then it was understand that he's a car person, and it was really cool. Even listening to you talk about cars on the Yappy Hour it's like some things go over my head because I'm kind of a car guy, but I'm not, like, I won't know specs. But like, if you say this whatever Corvette has a blah blah blah, I'm like, look, does it have heated seats or not? Like, that's all I care about. Bluetooth and heated seats. That's all I care.
Mine has a heated steering wheel. Best investment of my life.
Oh my god, my mom's car, the one I drive, has a heated steering wheel. Oh, it's a lifesaver.
Best thing in the world.
We met actually in person one time, I think it was.
I think it was once or twice. I think it was once.
Once at Georgian, and I think it was literally just because, hey, are you at school? Want to meet up one day? Sure. Found out we're in the same program. ADMC, advertising and marketing. I need to know, why are you in ADMC? What brought you to it? What brought you to it? What was the?
You're a really good interviewer.
Thank you. I really try on these to make it interesting.
No, you're very, very talented.
Like I said, I literally have notes written.
I love it. I love it. Dude.
Checking it off.
That's all. You're very talented at this. ADMC. So I got started. It actually all goes back to grade 9, actually, way back. And take your kid to work day, right? I don't know if you guys have to take your kid to work day.
No, I never had that.
We did. We had to take your kid to work day. And here's the thing. So my parents love them to death, but both of their jobs are not something I would ever want to do. So she doesn't do this anymore, but at the time my mom was vice president of human resources for Toyota Canada. And she said to me, she's like, listen, Joe, you don't want to come to HR. No, it's so like it. No, no, it doesn't. So I was like, okay. I was like, cool, whatever. I won't do it. And then my dad is on the other side of that wall. So he worked from home for like 13 years. So take your kid to work day is not going to be like done at home, right? It's your one day to go out and experience, an office culture and kind of how that stuff happens. So I wasn't going to sit at home and do the same thing. I've heard him on the other side of this wall for 10 years, right? So my aunt, actually, my mom's brother's wife, worked at a marketing agency at the time. She's at a different agency now, the one I ended up doing my internship at. And she was like, well, why don't you come with me? Like, why don't you, come to my agency? So I ended up doing that, and she had some really cool clients, stuff like, at the time it was, I don't know if you know, like the company Wrigley. Oh, yeah, like the gum? Yeah, like Juicy Fruit, stuff like that. Canada Dry, Skittles, like those were some of her clients. So, like her team was the team that came up with Taste the Rainbow. Like that was them. So cool. It was really cool for me to like meet some of these people and experience it. I met the guy who ran Burger King's social media. Like I really got kind of thrown into the agency life, and I just fell in love with it. It was like the coolest thing to me that everybody was so creative, and there was like not a strict dress code. And grade 9 me didn't want to wear a suit every day, right? So they're like, it wasn't a strict dress code. Everyone was super chill. Brainstorming sessions. I just loved that kind of stuff. It was really cool to me. So after I went to that, the rest of high school goes by. We get thrown a little wrench in the plans with the pandemic. And I decide, what, screw it. I'm going to go right to school right after. I ended up going to Seneca for business administration for 1 semester. Oh my God, I couldn't stand it. I could not stand it. It was so many numbers, so much Excel, so many macros. I hated it. There was no creativity. I just couldn't stand it. It's a great program. Don't get me wrong. But it wasn't my thing. Like, it just wasn't for me. I didn't want to sit there behind an Excel spreadsheet every day. I couldn't do it. It was not interesting. So I ended up taking a semester off. So I dropped out of that program, and I took that January semester off to kind of, collect myself. I was working and just kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And I was looking at different schools, and there were a few that came into the fray for marketing programs because I realized that I wanted to spend more with the creative side and the actual marketing side of it as opposed to the business side of it. I looked at George Brown, I looked at Centennial, I looked at Sheridan, I looked everywhere. But George's program stuck out to me for how its emphasis on creative, right? Right. And emphasis on how much it really packed into the program in those 2 years. And so I was like, screw it. Signed up, did the first year completely online. Which I liked the first year, but I didn't like the online part of it. Like I really wanted to be on a college campus. It was weird being 20 years old, walking into your last year of college, and that was the first time you stepped on campus. Yeah, it was really weird. It threw me off, threw me for a loop. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the program. The people were great. I loved them. The teachers were phenomenal. Like preface that, the majority of teachers were phenomenal. You talked about it in your last episode. I did. There's one that just retired. I don't know if you ever had her, but she was, oh God, she was so bad. She hated me. She couldn't stand me for whatever reason. I don't know. Is she the one that kept calling you a different name? Yes. Okay, yeah. Yes. Derek told me about her. Oh, there might be. There goes my Wi-Fi. Oh my God, she couldn't stand me. For the life of me, she couldn't stand me. No, that's really good. Oh yeah, you're back. There we go. My bad. Here we go. My computer's in like
the complete opposite side of my house from my router, so it's fighting through 13 different walls, and
the worst.
Then it sucks because my parents are.
Oh yeah, that's the worst.
My parents both have
using it.
It sucks, but it
my
works for when it works.
Right? Hey man, listen, that's all that counts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the program. I enjoyed the majority of teachers and that kind of stuff, and the people I met were great. I mean, Derek's one of them. It's like great guy. Really enjoyed spending time with a lot of those people and working on projects with those people and expanding our creative mindsets, I guess you could say, if I want to get really really cheesy about it. But it was really enjoyable, and it kind of led me. That was the path that led me there, and now my diploma's on the wall, and it's like, hell yeah, man. It was cool. I loved it.
Yeah. For me going into it, it was, what can I do to make myself better on YouTube? That was the only reason to go into it. Was I just want.
You picked a good program for that.
I did, and it was my mom was giving me the idea of like being a teacher, and I'm like, I hated school. I hated being in it. I don't like working with kids, which is ironic because now I actually work as a camp leader, and it's just irony how it turned itself around that way. It really was just, it was kind of funny in the end. And then I gave like suggestions. I'm like, what if I was a chef? And my mom was like, nah, it's shitty hours and this and that. And I was like, it is bad hours. And I'm like, what about marketing? And my mom's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. I can do it. Help me with YouTube. And she goes, sure. Why not? Like,
yeah. It's really good. I mean, the stuff that you learn in that program about the Adobe suite and that kind of stuff.
Steve.
It's funny.
Praise Steve. Praise Steve and last one. Love him.
Well, I'll never forget. I remember one time I didn't get the memo. It was a bit of an accident that this happened, but Steve sent out an email that our class wasn't happening and that he'd be there if we had any questions, right?
Right.
And the internet was down, and it came back about 5 minutes before the class. So I was like, oh, okay, thank God. I'll just hop in and sit there and listen. So I hop into the class, and there's fucking nobody there. Nobody there. It's just Steve.
Yeah.
And then I open my email, and I'm like, oh shit, right? Like, now what am I gonna do? Like, leave? No, I'm not gonna just disappear, right? So instead of asking him questions, Steve and I spent 45 minutes talking sports.
Yeah.
Because the program was done, the class was done. So it was just like, okay, if you guys have any questions for the final, like, just let me know. So I hop in, and we just spent 45 minutes talking sports, and we talked hockey, we talked baseball, we talked everything with him and I. And what a phenomenal teacher, what a phenomenal human being he is. He really is a great person.
He's awesome. I love him. He said if there's any if you want to work he sent an email out and said you want to work graphic design in the future, let me know. I've yet to send him one back because I want to. But I remember one class we had them both years, this semester and last year.
Yep.
And I remembered he was a wrestling fan, and I went to, actually it was the same. I don't know if you're a wrestling fan or if you watch like WWE.
I've watched it.
Okay.
My friends that are.
Okay, because actually I went to, there was a event happening in Toronto sometime in August, I think it was, and it was the same one that Momo went to. I don't know if SmackDown. So Momo actually went to the same one. I didn't know that until I got on the TTC leaving, and I'm like, I could have met him there. And I bought a shirt from a wrestler whose catchphrase is literally just "yeah." And it just said on the shirt, it just says "yeah" all over, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wear it the first day to Steve's class, and he better catch it up. He better catch up on it. And like, I walk in, I have his sweater on, I unzip it, take my sweater off. I think it was like a cool September day. Put it down. I turn around, and me and him just start talking because it's the first time we've seen each other in person. Because the year before he was online.
Yeah,
and we're talking or whatever, and he just finished it and he goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh good, you read my shirt. Like, and it was the funniest thing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, we're gonna get along this year. Like it's gonna be good.
He was a great guy. I mean, I never had him in person, unfortunately. I never had him in person. He was a good guy.
Awesome person, and like great conversational. I did did you take Intro to Entrepreneurship?
I took social entrepreneurship.
Okay. In the second year you got to choose 2 courses. It was the current issues and stories about that. You took that one? I took the other one, which was Intro to Entrepreneurship. Because I'm like, I don't really care about issues. I feel like it's just going to be whatever, bad class. Sure. So I go and I take it, and one of the assignments was interview an entrepreneur. I'm like, okay, who am I going to interview? And my first thought was my parents' boss. They both work for the same company. I'm like, okay, cool. Realized I couldn't get far with that, so I'm like, I'll interview Steve. I see him every week. So I sent him an email. I'm like, hey, can I interview you one day for an assignment? And he goes, sure. He was so happy, so excited. He's like, oh, I'm ready for this. And I brought in questions, interviewed him. And I ended up getting like a 90 something on the assignment. I think even
he picked that interview. He's super interesting.
He's so cool. Such a great guy and it was interesting listening to how he started his company off an iPad, but he never actually used an iPad. It was such a cool. I still have the recording. I don't think I'm ever going to delete that recording. I'm probably going to put it on Google Drive. It's just a really great story about him and starting a career, and it was awesome. I just move away from school if the viewers are not bored already talking about education. Actually, scratch that. One more thing. I saw a TikTok, and on the TikTok, it was Debbie's TikTok. And you probably know exactly which one this is.
Yeah, I do.
The Jersey TikTok. She shared her. She loved Debbie. She's awesome. There's a whole war story I've had with
Instagram.
No, Instagram, TikTok. I have her on basically anything and everything I could.
Love Debbie.
Love Debbie. She's such a help. There was an incident where a group member, we had to kick him out because he was not doing the work, and he was. Long story short, I asked for a professional photo. He sent in him and a half-naked girl when he was like 18. True story. We weren't too fond of it. It was not a happy day. The guy was trying to flex, and it didn't work that well. Then he tried to play screenshots, and it didn't work that well. If anyone knows me, do not try to play screenshots on me. You will lose. It's like shooting yourself in the foot, the knee, the hip, and the face all at once.
Taking your.
Yeah, like you're losing, taking the L. But I was scrolling through her TikTok and I found one. And I'm like, oh, that looks like our school. Open it up and I'm like, oh, I know that guy in the back. And it's this dude. Yeah. It's this dude walking in, agreed to do a TikTok with the teacher, and I'm like, God damn, I wish I could do that. Truth be told, I am taking that sports marketing class next year, so.
Hey, listen. If you get the chance, do the TikTok.
I will do the TikTok. No,
she's great.
She's awesome.
She's really awesome. And I mean, it was funny because that was after class. Like, class was already over, and at that point, I had that class on a Thursday, so I didn't have anything after, so I just go home. So I could sit there for an extra 20 minutes or something like that, and kind of exist. And it wasn't like putting me out, but yeah, it was very funny. Debbie was very enjoyable to be in a class with.
I want to see if I can try to get Debbie on the podcast. I feel like that's a big stretch.
Oh, I feel like it's a big stretch.
That might be a big stretch. She might be like, well, okay. When?
No, dude, interview her. I mean, she used to work for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I know. Dolphins, Argos. I wanted to bring all that up. I have a bunch of people on my mind. She brought in, I don't know if you ever heard of him. His name is Todd Collins, social media. It's like a social media marketer. Really, he brought him in on a call during our social media class. I loved picking his brain. Social media was the one class I got so excited for because I'm like, this is something where I actually want to use it.
Yeah.
Everything else, it's like, okay, like entrepreneurship and PR. PR was a war story. It was hilarious. I actually want to get my friends who are also in that PR class on the call to talk about it. It was awesome. Okay, now actually moving away from school. The last 2 episodes have been basically around school, but still kind of not moving away from it. We did meet at the pub the bar, the restaurant at Georgian. But we started talking before that on Discord because Jonah, if you've followed my content for a little bit, I was a part of the Georgian College streaming team, I guess you would say. Streamers.
Yeah, content creators.
The first guy to actually be a part of it was Jonah. Look at him. Yes, sir. It was. I remember seeing that post. I'm like, oh my God, that'll be so cool to be a part of. I want to be that, and how cool that is, and this and that. And then there was someone else. I forget. Spargo. I don't know how to say his name.
Sparky. I don't
know. I met him in person. Really nice guy. I feel bad. It was the award ceremony they had for the thing, and
yes, I still don't have my plaque.
Yeah, you need to show up. Text Mikkel. Text and be like, hey, when can I show up and pick it up?
Dude, it's so far. It's like 50 minutes north of here.
Oh, Muffin. We can get food.
Don't even whip that card out, bro. Don't even whip that card out. Don't. I know the card out. We can just stop by. We can get some food. You can rate Georgian's food. No, what you have to do is you have to go. You have to get that plaque for me.
Drive it down to
Yappy hour. Bring the plaque with you.
You know what? I might. Anyways, so we met through the club, and this guy I've never, oh my God, such cool. He's really cool. He's a streamer. I want to be a part of this and whatever. I want to be just like him when I grow up, Mom. Like 1
year difference between us.
Yeah, only a couple years difference. It's like, Mom, he's my hero. It was like, okay, sweet. He's a streamer. I think I followed you on Twitch, and then you came back on one of my streams, and you followed back, and you stupidly wasted your money subbing to me recently. I don't know what's wrong with you. You really have too much money to burn if that's the case.
Believe me, I don't actually have as much money as I used to because of that thing in the garage now. But
yeah,
and for those BMW haters, it's not maintenance, it's mods. I always support. You gotta support the homies. You gotta support the friends.
It's awesome. I love it, and it's supporting you, Momo, especially. I really have to ask though. When did the wheels come off the tracks and you just decided not to stream?
Oof.
It's like I know I keep bugging you on this. Like I need to get you back up the stream.
It's not bugging me because it's a great question and it's very it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting to some people. I had been racing competitively for a while, and for the most part, that was the only thing I was streaming was my competitive races. Because at the end of the day, when you're racing in those competitive scenes, if an incident happens, you have to have your point of view, right? You have to have your view of the incident so that all the views can be collected and the stewards can come together and create an incident report and dish out the penalties if necessary. So I really only streamed to catch my point of view. That was the only reason I really did it. And I had known Momo for a little bit now. I'd known Momo since 2020, because ironically, our other friend, Sebastian, love the guy to death, him and Sebastian went to high school together.
Okay.
And I know Sebastian because we used to work together at Best Buy. And I had no idea that he knew Momo. So he introduced me to Momo. And then Momo kind of got me into streaming more frequently and streaming more than just my race POVs. Even though that was really the thing that did really well on my channel. Like, right. At the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, I did partner numbers. But like my race POVs for my final championship, my currently final championship, we're working on a fourth. For my championship, my POV for that Grand Prix, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix with Ferrari, had triple the viewership that the league's stream did.
That's insane.
There were 3 times the amount of people watching my POV of the race than they were watching the entire Grand Prix with the league.
So there's 3 people watching?
Sorry?
So there's 3 people watching?
Like 38.
Okay,
people watching.
Sorry, I had to throw that little roast in there.
No, it's funny, dude. Yeah, there were about 38 people watching my POV, and towards the end, in the last few laps, because it was the same kind of thing as the 2021 title. Me and my championship rival at the time went into the race. There was only a 6-point difference between us, and so either of us could win it that day. So in the last few laps of the race, the race, I'll never forget it. Abu Dhabi, I think, was 30 something laps. My POV on the last few laps was like 57 viewers, 58 viewers. It was ridiculous. I'd never been that high in my entire life. It was absurd because all these people were like, "Oh my god, it's coming down to this. He's in position to win the title. Like, we want to be on with him to see his reaction." Right. Which was, I'll never forget it. I crossed the line. I was like borderline tears because it had been 18 weeks of battling for this championship that had come down to the last race. I remember I went to the back. The Canadian flag is there now, but it used to be in my office downstairs. I went to the wall. I took it off the wall. Like, wrapped myself in the Canadian flag. I was super stoked. And so Momo convinced me. He's like, "Listen, man, there's clearly an audience for your Formula One content. You should stream more than just your race POVs." So I was like, "Okay, screw it. We'll give it a shot." So I streamed, and then I would stream, 2 days a week, and then I went to 3, and then I was streaming Monday through Thursday, and I was streaming different games, and it just got to the point where it was just burning out. Right. There was a lot of stuff that I was doing. My internship at my agency had just started, so I was working like 9 to 5, and then coming home and streaming for 4 hours, and it was like, oh my god, no time to myself anymore. And it's funny. Most people would be like, "Oh my god, I wish people would watch me play games," but it's like, you wish people would watch you play games to a certain extent. Like, there's some things that I love about it. There's always a limiting factor. And after the season, and I stopped racing in Competition Racing League, which is now goes by a different name, but I refuse to give them any free promotion because they're total a-holes, those guys. But after I stopped racing in there, and now that was the major thing that kept my channel going, and that kept me doing it, was the league race POVs, was the competitive racing, because people wanted to see competitive action. They wanted to see really high quality racing. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm Jarno Opmeer, because I'm not. But once I stopped doing that, there was kind of less incentive to keep going with the other stuff because there wasn't as big of an audience for it. And it just kind of fizzled out. The new F1 game kind of sucked at that point. 22 was really bad. I wasn't enjoying playing it. I wasn't enjoying the people I was playing with. So I just stopped playing. Just stopped streaming. That was it.
Is there a day where you decide you're going to come back and maybe do a stream a week, maybe like a Saturday night where you piss around with your friends and play Warzone, or maybe do an F1? Because I know Momo, you and I played F1.
Yeah.
And Momo and I streamed it, and I was like, "Yo, you got to get on it. You got to stream it. You can totally pull viewers." Is there a day?
Yeah, there could be. If there ever was a day, I don't think it would be as consistent as it used to be. I think maybe I'd stream once a month or once every 2 months or something like that, just for shits, or just to capture good moments on camera and be able to relive those moments. But I don't think I'd ever go back to it as consistently as I was. I don't have the time anymore. And it was draining. It was a lot of work to maintain that, post the schedules, make the clips, make the TikToks. I applaud you every day because of how consistent you are at it. I can't. It's
really funny because I'm not consistent.
I am, and that's a step. I couldn't maintain it with work. It was too much. And it wasn't worth it in terms of a monetary reason. I wasn't making a crap load of money from it. So I was like, okay, I'm making money working. So why am I going to sit here and waste time, kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I still play for fun, but I don't stream anymore. And if I ever came back, it'd be very, very temporary, I think.
That's fair. What would the league race preparation going in? Because when we played, you might as well have drop kicked everyone else out of the lobby. It was obvious who was winning and obvious who was, not playing the game. What was the routines like for you going into it, and did you use all the practice time that was given to you? And
yeah, it was so the way league races work. It's a little strange. So it's a race once a week, right? And there's qualifying, and then there's the race same day. It happens right after it. And there's no designated practice sessions because it's very hard to get everybody in for a practice session on a separate day and do that.
Right.
So people, what they do is they practice on their own time and come in for the race. So preparation, that was the other thing with league racing. And when I was working is the preparation for league racing to try and stay competitive was a lot of time. It was a lot of time. Because at the end of the day, it's very finite margins that separate you from another driver. So it was like, it was like 7 or 8 hours of practice a week before the race of lap after lap after lap and working strategies and working fuel loads and talking with my engineer, making strategies with my teammate. It was a lot of work that, don't get me wrong, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was a blast. But it was so much time that during the pandemic, it was way easier to get away with.
Right.
Because, I wasn't allowed to go anywhere else. But once that pandemic was over and real life kind of restarted, it was really hard to justify sinking 8 hours a week into practicing for something. To the point where on F1 2020, I have like close to 900 hours of gameplay on that one game.
That's insane.
Because it was so much practice all the time, every single day, practicing for the race. The race happens, you get off for a day, like you take your breather. Then it comes around, you start practicing for the next week. It was like, it never really stopped. You had one break week a season, like 1 week where there wasn't a Grand Prix. So you had one break, but every week it was back to back races. And it was a lot of time to sink into it. That was becoming harder and harder to justify.
That's insane. Yeah, pro gaming's, a lot of people give it so much flack. It's actually such a difficult thing to coordinate with everyone. I played for the Georgian COD team. I have the jersey. Yeah. It's there. I have the jersey from the team. It's proof. It was hard to justify I outside of work, because I used to work Wednesday nights, and the only COD games would happen are Wednesday nights, and it was like, okay, well, I'm getting home at this time and I can't, and then they're like, look, the guy who's the team manager, he just dipped. You want to take over? I'm like, sure. Even more time. And I took down notes. I'm like, okay, I actually sunk good time into it. I'm like, look, here's what needs to happen. I need name. Everyone else was kind of like, I'm not throwing blame on anyone else, but it was kind of like, well, they're kind of just doing this for fun. And then you'd face schools that are do it religiously. Yeah. You'd face Michigan State, and then these guys would be playing 36 hours in the week, and you're like, hold on, do you guys not have? And they're getting paid to play it, and we're like, so then we tried to play one game. Then it was update night, so we tried to push back and look, you got to either forfeit or this, and I'm like, blah blah blah. And then I tried to take it up with the league, and they're like, you guys, first off, you guys said you would forfeit. And I'm like, here's the thing. We had to because of an update that you guys scheduled our game on. And they're like, well, we expect everyone to have our game updated and this and that. I'm like, whatever. And then from there, we just backed out of the league.
Yeah. It's hard, man. It's really hard to coordinate those leagues and get everybody on the same time. And that was the other thing too with Formula 1 Esports and racing with a lot of those guys is the leagues were, I'd say 99% European.
Ooh.
So
You're then I'm dealing at 1 a.m.
So at this point, I was racing at 2 p.m., 2 in the afternoon on a weekday, which is because they're racing at night for them, right? They're racing at 8 p.m. I'm racing at 2. I had a friend who lived in California who was racing at 11. And it's oh my God. It's at the end of the day, once you're out of school and once you're working, I can't race in the middle of a week in the afternoon. Do that, right? It's just not going to happen. So it was a combination of that and a combination of, I just don't have the time anymore. But I still now I'm racing competitively again, not as significant, but on a weekend in a North American league.
Right.
So I'm doing that. But the days of European races and racing against the Euros, and I have a Dutch teammate and my buddy Danza from the Czech Republic. It just became harder and harder to pull off at that point.
Now, did you make money off of was there a pool you won from? Yeah. Oh yeah, big man. Last thing.
How do you think I bought my car?
Oh, that's true. Off of racing fake cars.
I tell everybody I drove fake cars wacky circles and bought a real one.
Hey,
That's what I did.
Wonky circles.
Hell yeah, man.
Wonky circles with a couple flat ends and some weird ones.
3 chips later, here I am.
Yeah, show them Monaco. They'll be like, huh? You can take.
Oh my god, that is my favorite track of all time.
I hate it.
Monaco.
I hate Monaco. I hate Monaco. I hate Monaco. I hate the slow integral. I think that's just the NASCAR speaking of me. I hate the slow turn. I like Monza if you just got rid of the turn 1 and turn 2. Full send it down that straight. I'll be happy. Yeah,
dude, Monaco is the best. I mean, I remember in my one of my first ever seasons league racing, Monaco was like, that's like my track. I love that track. It is the racetrack for me. And we got in a qualifying session, and I'm like, I'm sitting there like really confident in myself. I hadn't won a race yet. This year. And I was like really confident. I knew it was going to happen. And we get into quali, and, you know, we all set our banker laps. You know, you put your time on the board. My banker lap was like a 111 or something like that. Was my banker lap, which was good enough for like 4th on the grid. And I was like, see, that's not going to cut it. So I put on a new set of soft tires, lower the fuel load all the way. I deafened myself in Discord. I didn't want to hear a single thing, right? I pull out, I warm my tires up, lap starts. I will never forget it. The guy I battled with for the championship all year, he ended up beating me for it. The guy I battled with for the championship all year was really quick. He set his banker lap, his final quali lap was a 110.2 was his banker. Was his final lap. And keep in mind, my lap at this point was a 111.1. Right? So he's 9/10 faster than me.
Which still isn't that big of a margin.
Which is, I mean, it's like absurd, right?
Yeah.
So I go out there, I set my final lap, checkered flag falls, I cross the line with a 109.1. I beat him by 1.1 seconds for
That's
pole.
Insane.
The closest person behind me was 1.1 seconds back. I undeafened from Discord, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? How did you, like, where does that lap come from?" And I was like, "Listen, man, I had spent so much time sweating Monaco to the point where out of 120,000 people on the time trial list, I was 368th.
That's insane.
Sweated that.
That's
best
insane.
track in the world.
That's insane. Yeah, I can't. I think the one track that I do like the most is I don't know why, but the Red Bull Ring. I don't know. I think it's
great.
I think it's just the mix of the corners and the swoop turns and, you know,
long straights. It's cool. You have long straights. You have medium speed corners on the first, like turn 1 is a medium speed corner. Then you go up to turn 3 because technically the kink on the straightaway is turn 2.
Yeah.
Turn 3 is really slow speed. Turn 4 is a medium speed. 5 and 6 are like decently medium to high speed. 7, 8, and 9 are all high speed corners. It's phenomenal.
Like one of the most perfect tracks.
Great.
Last thing we're gonna touch on. We've been talking. Can you believe it? We've been talking for about an hour.
Dude, it's awesome.
You know what that makes it? A Yappy hour.
Yeah.
Yappy hour podcast down below. You posted some TikToks on your TikTok. Again, all Jonah's links in the description. Yeah, I know. I'm touching. I'm nice. Don't forget it.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna intentionally.
You play the guitar.
I do. Yes.
And one of the things I didn't know about you until I think I stumbled upon your. I think I knew you were kind of a music guy. Again, you love your vinyls.
Love it.
You will swear and die by those until the world explodes.
I will.
Don't worry, your vinyls will still find a way to be floating in space. I don't know. You probably have them bunkered down somewhere. What got you into guitar? Like playing guitar? Who?
Man, that's really another really good question, dude. Oh my god,
that's actually one I didn't write down until we started talking. Like I wrote that down maybe halfway through. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should just touch on that.
You know what? You're very good at this. I'm telling you.
Thank you.
So music has always been like a gigantic part of my life, like massive. My dad is a music I'm not going to say nerd because he's just he's so knowledgeable. He grew up with it. I mean, keep in mind, he grew up with this in like the 70s, so it's like vinyls, and you move to 8 tracks and cart decks and that kind of stuff. And he's just always been like a music guy. He went to school for radio broadcasting. Like, it's just like, it's always been his passion. And we've always been surrounded by music in this house. You'll never find anywhere in this home where music isn't playing. I can't have silence. It just doesn't work. Music's always playing, whether it's, his music, my music, it's always in the background somewhere. And so from a very young age, I was surrounded by music, and it wasn't like, I wasn't surrounded by like, mid 2010s, like techno music.
Right.
I was surrounded by like 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, R&B, rock, like that kind of stuff with real physical instruments.
Right.
And I just fell in love with it. And, ironically, my brother had this whole thing happen to him with his eye. There's a very long story. I'll tell you off the podcast. It's very graphic. I'll tell you another time. But
right.
It's very great. And one of my dad's coworkers for my brother as like a get well soon present. Keep in mind, this is like 2007.
Okay.
So I'm 5 at this point. As a get well soon present, got my brother Guitar Hero for the Wii. My brother's never been a huge music guy. Like, he likes it, but he's never been like as deep into it as my dad has and as I became.
Right.
And so that get well soon present of Guitar Hero for my brother turned into, oh, this is mine now. So I started playing Guitar Hero and listening to that music and getting unnecessarily good at Guitar Hero. Like, it's actually a problem now. It's really bad. I still play it to this day. I have Clone Hero. I still play it all the time. And I was 5 at this point, and 5-year-old is like big enough to hold a proper guitar. Like, I would have like not good. Until I turned, like, I got a little older and I played Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all that kind of stuff. And I said to my parents, I was like, listen, I want to play a real guitar. Like, I want to try and learn a real guitar. And so for my 10th birthday, they took me to a music store and we picked out one of my guitars. It's now downstairs. It's my Les Paul, that like orange-ish one. That was my first ever guitar. I got that almost 12 years ago.
Wow.
I love that thing to death. I've done so many modifications to it. It has a different pickup in the bridge now. It sounds so good. I love the thing. And so I just wanted to learn, because all these bands and stuff that my dad had me listening to got me into music, and I wanted to learn. And one guitar turned into 2 guitars, turned into 3, turned into 4, and now I have 5. And it's 3 of them are sitting right here, right next to me. Now I have 5 guitars, and I've been playing for almost 12 years. And it's just something I've fell in love with. And I started with electrics, and I played electrics for the first 4 years of playing guitar. And then after 4 years, I got this guy right here.
Beauty.
My Washburn acoustic. You can see it's definitely been played. Like, you can see, like, here.
The scuffs. There's always stories behind it, though.
And that's the other thing. I love the stories behind guitars and how they look the way they do and the woods they're made out of, and how if this guitar was made out of a different wood, it would sound different and it would give a different tone. And it's always been super interesting to me. And, every guitar has a story, and every owner has a story with that guitar. And I've now had this one for almost 7 years now. And it's seen its days. You can see it's been played, right? It looks like it's been used. And I love that about guitars. The way they look, the way they sound, the way they feel. And I fell in love with it. And like I said, 1 turned into 5, and I've been playing for 12 years. And it's been, it's one of my favorite things to do in the entire world. Because there's no, other than maybe driving, look as it slides down. Other than maybe driving, there's no better therapy than playing a guitar in my head.
No, my story for a guitar, I got into it I would say like grade 7. And it started with the ukulele, because we had music. We had music class, and it was ukulele. And I remember I learned it, and I was like, "Oh, I like this. This is fun. I want to learn guitar." My dad had a guitar since probably before I remember him only having a guitar. Like, I remember his guitar. I kind of looked at it, maybe touched the strings a couple. Didn't really touch it. Didn't play with it. I picked it up one day and I started like doing ukulele chords on the 6 string. I'm like, well, how am I going to figure this out? So I started playing around on it. My mom comes in and goes, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just trying, dad's guitar. She goes, oh, are you interested? I go, yeah, I think it'd be fun. She goes, okay. That Christmas, maybe the next Christmas, I think Christmas of grade 8. So I don't 6 years ago, maybe I got a present from my grandma, which was this giant box, and she didn't tell us who it was for. And my first thought is, because I'm an older I'm the older brother, it's probably for my younger brother. Okay, cool.
Right.
Come Christmas Day, my mom or grandma picks it up, puts it in front of me, says, "Open it." I go, "Oh, it's actually for me."
It's for you.
Oh, it's for me. Open it. Big box. Open the box, and it's this guitar. And keep in mind, it's a guitar from Costco. It's only as good as it can be, but I still love it. I brought it to. I went to my aunt and uncle's yesterday, and we gave it was a little guitar we had for me to my cousins for them to play.
Oh yeah,
because they've been into guitars. So I brought my guitar and I tried to teach them. My dad taught them a couple chords, and I just was pissing around with it. So I had that, and I really didn't touch it for the first year. Grade 9 came in. I'm like, okay, in the high school I went to, there was a guitar music class. But both greatest idea I've ever had and worst idea I've ever had. The reason is, it was just everyone playing different things all at once at 8 a.m. It was horrible. The teacher was like, oh, you got to practice. So every time I would start turning and talking to my friend, they're like, oh, you got to practice. Oh, you got to practice. Oh, you got to practice. I'm like, only practice songs I don't like for so long. And it was I never was interested in the picking and I liked riffs, but I could just there was something about it where I just couldn't mentally get myself to do it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, strumming. I see my dad strum. That's probably where it came from. Then I started picking up a little riffs. There's one I don't know if you know them. It's called "Sometimes" by the Beach Fossils.
I don't know them.
I can send you the song after. I learned it through camps, and I learned it through my senior leader, so the person above me. He plays guitar, and that's like one of his songs he's playing. I'm like, what song is that? And he showed me, and he taught me it. And it's a really, really easy song to pick and a really easy riff. But there's some songs I just can't. Like, you tell me to do like "Sweet Child of Mine," I'm gonna sit there and look at you like you spoke like Mandarin or something. Like I can't do the basic riffs.
Really?
Tennessee Whiskey, I can do off heart. "Sweet Child of Mine," can't do.
Oh,
Friends in Low Places, I can do.
Takes a lot of time.
I can't do. Like,
yeah, it's tough. It takes a lot of time and a lot of learning and a lot of commitment to
it
really
is.
Sit there and learn it. And I mean, it's also different when you swap between like electric and acoustic. And you kind of, because they're rings, they feel different thickness of the neck, all that kind of. It's very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of the things too, kind of when I got into high school about it is that, and it's going to sound really shallow. Like, it's going to sound really shallow, but at the end of the day, dude, there's no better way in the entire world to pick up a woman than have a guitar.
I've learned. My girlfriend loves it when I play guitar. I'm sitting there, I'm just strumming the song.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I play, it's just whatever's on my playlist. I look up the tabs for it. It's not even the tabs. It's just the words with the chord above it. I just play it. I don't learn the riff. I don't learn the solo. I'm kind of just there to play the songs that I want to play and play along with them. So if I hypothetically went to a karaoke and they're like, oh, play a guitar with it. What song can you play on guitar? There's like a good select 4 that I know off by heart that I can do.
Right, start to finish. Better, just relatively easy. Then I picked up. I can actually turn my camera. You can kind of see them over there.
Oh, it's a Telly and a Strat.
So the Telly is actually a Fender. That was my first electric. The Strat, I'm not gonna lie, it's a fake off Amazon. It's a donor. So it's
okay.
Not horrible, but it's
dude, they sound just good. Honestly,
they're great. Love them.
There's a different sound to an American built Strat, but like if you look at some of the guys who made their careers, like my favorite band of all time is Green Day,
right?
And if you look at Billy Joe, that's not a Stratocaster. That's a Mexican knockoff that he got when he was 7 and learned on that, and he still plays it on tour 40 years later.
And it's
like it doesn't have to be the really high end model to sound good.
No, even some of the fakes just sound it 1-to-1. It's like, oh, I would rather pay less for a guitar that sounds and plays the same than one that, it's cool to own a $1,000 guitar, but it's like, am I really getting a good investment on it if the $100, $200 one sounds the same? No,
it's a tough market to look at because guitars are so expensive. And I've always been a Gibson guy.
Right.
I got my first Strat style guitar this year. Literally this year was the first one I got.
They're fun to play.
It's not even a Strat. Like it's no, it's right here. I don't know if you know. Do you know PRS, Paul Reed Smith?
I think so.
I got a PRS Silver Sky.
See, that's nice. Love that.
And dude, it's John Mayer's signature guitar.
That makes sense.
And I put this little bandana behind the strings. Fun fact, if you ever get to do this, if you put a bandana or a piece of cloth or something behind the strings on the neck, this helps mute the vibration so they don't buzz. So
actually, I put on my Christmas, I don't know if I'm getting it. Hopefully. I don't keep saying I bought. I asked for I forget the actual name of it, but string muters for your guitar, and it's like a wrap or string wrap, fret wraps.
Wrapped around it, yeah.
Because I'm like, maybe I'll actually start, because that was the one thing with electric, I can't get into it because it's like, oh, it doesn't sound. I have to play with the amp, and it's I have a little Fender amp. I don't even think it's Fender. I have a little amp, and it's like gain, bass, treble and something else, and I'm like, I just twist it until it sounds decent, and it's like, okay. Then I turn them all the way up and I strum it. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, it's complicated. Then you get into the whole world of like guitar pedals and that kind of stuff, and the
only guitar pedal I have is a loop, and it's not even a good loop. I have to I can't play it and trim it. It's a one off Amazon. It was like $50.
It's funny. I don't have a single guitar pedal. I've been playing for 12 years. I don't have one.
A loop is a must. If you are playing a song and you want to have the background to it, get a loop. Invest in a good one though.
A good one.
Invest in a good one. Yeah, there you go. Buy it.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're cutting out again. You can tell it's been half an hour. My Wi-Fi starts deciding to die.
Oh,
We're good. I think that's it. Talked F1, talked streaming, school, guitars, music. That's
whole lot of yapping
for over an hour. This is not the Yappy Hour podcast. That's a later project I'm hopefully eventually going to be on down the road, if I can drive down the road.
The guest slot's always open for you. You just got to make your way down here.
Yeah. The problem is getting down there. Wait till teleportation becomes a thing, bro. Highways, not a problem. I've already emailed Elon. I've already DM'd Elon asking, "Hey, I need teleportation. I need to get to my girlfriend's house. She's home alone. Home alone. I don't have the car. Help me."
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Yappy Hour season 985.
Tendie still has not been on the podcast.
We've done 900 eaten. We've done 1,000 seasons. He's still not here.
We've 1,000 seasons worth of restaurants, and we've covered from Canada to Zimbabwe. We're still going, but we can't get that far. We are currently in Zimbabwe.
Funny.
Anyways, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast. This was really cool.
I absolutely got to get you on. I got to come up with new questions. I got to get you on again.
I'll be here.
We got to do a stream. You don't have to stream it, is what I've learned. But you got to plan a day.
When the new MLB comes out.
Yeah, if I can justify buying it and not wanting to bash my.
You have a PlayStation.
Yeah, I'm broke. Well, not even that. I think I need to be in the mood for it. I've been so out of it. I have not played the whole season, the Diamond Dynasty wild card or whatever they call it.
The seasons thing that they do?
Yeah, I hate it. Not even the seasons. It's the whatever they added this year where you can only use certain cards for certain seasons and sets. I hate the sets.
Really,
I can't justify grinding out for cards that I can't use.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's one of those where it's like I even took notes. I have notes in here. I can probably find them somewhere in here. Oh, yeah, here's one. Team Affinity 1 and 2. Actually took notes to try to knock it off the thing. I got bored of it.
Oh man.
And I lost track. It was working summer. It just wasn't a blast. But yeah, we totally should do that. I think, do you have Chell?
24, I do. Yep.
We can play Chell. I still got F1. Haven't deleted it yet.
The new one or the old one?
The new one. 23, I think. They haven't come out with 24 yet.
No, 24 comes out probably in the summer.
Yeah, I have 23. So I got another 6 months.
There's a few games we can play.
We can figure it out. But yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. The blast was awesome.
It was great. I love it.
Any links anything you want to shout out?
Oh man, it's me asking this question.
I know, that's why I'm throwing it in there. We gotta think.
Anybody listening, if you want to go listen to the Yappy Hour podcast, you can find it on Google or you can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just look up the Yappy Hour. It's actually called the Yappy Hour podcast.
I'll throw it in the description too. Don't worry.
We'll put it. Thank you. But yeah, that's really about it. If you want to follow me anywhere on socials, you can do that. Twitter is probably where I'm funniest, so it's you and you're drooling. No, that picture, he's crying.
Yeah.
I'm funniest on Twitter, so if you want to follow me there, it's at JonerF1 _. Other than that, please follow Let's Talk Tendie's podcast. It was a blast. I love this. Great interviewer, great host. Go follow him on Twitch. Go follow him on Instagram. Follow him on YouTube. Subscribe. Do all that stuff. He's a great guy. He's truly a good person, and it's very nice of him to invite me on here. So
absolutely, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I guess now I have to figure out when I need to record the outro. Probably after this. All right, to the outro. Epic transition. Bam! Man, what an episode. Jonah, again, thank you, brother. I cannot exclaim how much I enjoyed you on the podcast. I absolutely want to get Jonah back on this one. Such a great guy, such a really good person to be interviewed. Love picking his brain on different things, on F1, on racing, even MLB in the past, or even a little bit of MLB in sports, and some of our teachers. I know a lot of you may be done with the conversation of teachers. Keep in mind, we did have basically the same teacher set in college. Loved talking to them. It's one of those things where, as an interviewer, or someone who's just getting into interviewing, and who I enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie. This is really bright. I enjoy interviewing people. It's really, really nice to hear. I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit. It's really nice to hear someone say that you are a really good interviewer and asking really tough questions. We actually did talk about interviewing after we stopped recording for a little bit. This idea of the intro outro was from Chris Van Vliet from the Insight podcast, wrestling podcast. So I'm not going to take any credit on this idea. That was totally his idea. I wanted to style it a lot like his, because I love listening to the Insight podcast, love listening to the Yappy Hour. Again, Yappy Hour, YAPP, that's double P, Y, again, hour, HOUR, and don't forget the. You can find it on Apple Music, Spotify, I think Amazon Music. I'll put it down in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, follow wherever you're listening. I'm hoping one day to get an Apple Music or Apple Podcast and maybe an Amazon Podcast in the future. Please let me know if you're interested in that or if you want to listen to it on that. I am so excited for a future guest. I believe the next episode will include Molo Polo 300. So stay tuned for that one. Another content creator. He's awesome. Love Molo. Love Jonah. Fun story, those two. Jonah actually introduced me to Molo. Not in person, over stream. But long story short, thank you guys so much for watching. Follow, subscribe, and we will see you in the next Let's Talk Tennis podcast. Peace.